Hi guys, Chris with Microsoft here again with another exciting episode of What's New in Windows Server 2012. Okay, in the last episode we started talking about Hyper-V and some of the changes that we had related to how things are evolving in the Hyper-V world. So, continuing with that discussion, one of the things that we had started talking about was the whole migrating VMs from one host to another. If you'll remember, we had some problems with one of the Hyper-V hosts not being Hyper-V host yet, so I've corrected that problem now, so at least I hope I have. Let's see. Go ahead and fire up Hyper-V on this guy. Should be part of the domain. Yeah, there we go. So host 1, one of the problems I was having was being able to connect to the 2, so let me see if that's now resolved. So host 2. There we go. So this is what I was getting at before. There are no VMs on host 1, and host 2 should have some virtual machines on them along with their snapshots. So this drives this window, that window drives what you can do. One thing I did forget to mention was when you're over here on these action pane items, there's a lot more of these than there were before. A lot easier to use, but you need to make sure you understand that there are two action panes. There's one for the hypervisor, and there's one for the virtual machine that you have selected. For instance, this now is MS1, and now it's DC1, and now this is host1. You see the difference? Alright, so this defines actions that I can do to whatever host I have selected, and this area defines actions which I can do with whatever VM I have selected, such as MS1 is not on, so one of its actions is start, and DC1 is on, so one of its options is shut down or turn off. Alright, so some of the things that we would find interesting this time would be that whole property pane that we were talking about with the whole enabling live migration. So on Contoso host 1, where I'm at right now, I am going to go into my HyperV settings, and before we went into live migrations and it was already enabled. On this one, I just stood up this hypervisor, so I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to tell it use curb. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to use the default of 2 here, and that it'll be okay to use any live network for live migration. The reason I'm doing that, even though I wouldn't do that in a production environment, is because I only have one network on this environment here. So turned on, that's really about all there was to it. So if I swing back over here to Hyper-V Contoso host 2, one of the things I could do is go ahead and migrate this guy, but before I do that, let's take a look at him. I should still have an RDP session up here with poor little Mr. DC. Oh, there he is. He went up on my other monitor. Alright, so let's see if we can squeeze this all into the capture window. Let's go in here, command prompt as administrator, and let's just kind of go back in here and ping the gateway 10.0.0.1. Actually, let's swing that over to the left side of the screen. There we go. And then we'll swing this over kind of to the right so that we can pop back over to it here in a sec. And what's the best way? Maybe if I bring this over here and start swinging in the view just a bit, and then swing that one out. What I want to see is if I burp, if I hiccup, if I have any kind of a problem. I shouldn't, and I've done this, of course, a billion times, but now that I'm doing it on YouTube or recording it, we'll see what kind of action I get. So you see this option right here called Move. When I click Move, I get 2 options. So next, I can either move the virtual machine or move its storage. So moving this storage just means, hey, let's toss this thing over to, where is it at now? Let's look. DC1 settings. It has its storage currently on the B drive. So if I want to move that over to, say, the C drive, that would be that first option. So instead, we're actually going to move the entire virtual machine. We're going to move it over to another host. And we'll do this one here in a little bit. We'll turn on a different VM, and I'll show you we get kind of the same results here. I'm going to minimize this so that it's not confusing us as to what machine is what machine there. So we've got our little ping window being recorded, and we got our hypervisor being recorded, and so let's get ready to kick this guy off and send him across. Readjust that window a little bit. Okay, so move the VM. I want to move that to Contoso host 1. It's already got it in its history there. And it's going to ask me, hey, where do you want to put this stuff? You want to put it all in one place? Do you want to pick for each? Or do you want to just move the VM's config file? Or not the VM's config file, rather the VM's essence. So we would only use this third option if, for instance, maybe we were moving the virtual machine out to well, let me give this example. Let's say that I had moved the virtual machine out to a network share, which yes, you can do if you're using SMB3. Let's say maybe I did a live storage migration, popped the VM's storage itself out to a network share, and now I just want to hand the VM off from one Hyper-V host to another. That's when I would use that option right there. I don't want to pick a whole bunch of different locations. I'm just going to say move it all to one place. And when I click browse, it's actually going to kind of give me a remote browser to that remote machine. Notice that it says remote file browser, Contoso host 1, and then C drive. So we're wanting to see inside of C drive, and then we're going to go pick the Hyper-V folder that I have as the default location for that hypervisor. Once the option comes up, there it's enumerating now. So I actually want that Hyper-V folder to be where we're going to go with this thing. So we're going to say next, and that's really all there is to it. So it's telling me that it's actually going to move the VHD and all this other stuff out there. I'm going to click finish, and we should start to see creating the remote machine. We should start seeing some statuses going as it starts to perform the move. If I hop over to the other Hyper-V server and take a look at it here in a second, once it has finished the creation, we should see them come up here. So I just want to see a couple of different status screens and have them ready for us to look at that. So I'm going to move that to one side, keeping the little ping going over here, and so make sure I'm on host 1. So we're coming from host 2 to host 1, so I'm going to keep that kind of down here where we can jump over to them here in a sec. So we're still on creating the remote VM. I'm going to pause that off and on here just so that you're not having to wait. This normally doesn't take a long time in a production environment, but my crummy little lab, he's kind of got a slow little switch and a whole bunch of servers all attached to him at once, so he gets a little cranky some days. So I'll keep the uptime counter your checkpoint to see how much time it really took for me to get this done, unless it suffers catastrophic failure, in which case I'll fix the problem and come back. But the neat thing is that you can see if this were actually your production machine, then we're not actually being impacted. The virtual machine is actually not going to be impacted. And I guess, rather than pausing the video, let's talk about a couple of things about what's really going on here. First off, the virtual machine itself is going to more or less snapshot the main drive that you're using, which basically just puts a freeze and creates another disk that it uses for any changes that occur. And then it starts shipping that off to the other server. That pretty much can go in the background, right? That's just one Hyper-V host talking to another Hyper-V host, throwing a file across the network. Nothing happens to the VM. The next thing that happens is once we get that file from one host to the other, then what we do is we start mirroring write operations, modify operations across. Aha! Okay, this operation is because of timeout period for moving Contoso DC1. So this might be relevant also to some of maybe not my network issues. We'll get back to that topic here in just a second of what's going on. Make sure I can still see Contoso DC1, host 1, host 2. Okay, we're good. See the details. Failed at migration. Planned VM failed creation for Contoso DC because of timeout period. Failed to retrieve data for the virtual machine migration return because of timeout. So it tried to create the remote virtual machine and then timed out during the operation of trying to do that. And that is more than likely, I'm pretty sure I turned the firewall off on this guy. I just stood this new server up over here, so let's just check a couple little things. I may pause the video to go and correct my lab issues. Obviously, first thing we always want to check is time, since we are relying more or less on Kerberos here. So we appear to be 222, so probably not a Kerberos authentication issue. Let's make sure that this guy, come on. The recording's getting in the way of that. Boy, he is slow. May have a performance issue here. I did notice that, yeah, definitely looking at a performance timeout here. I can't even get Task Manager to load up on this thing in a timely fashion, so that's probably where we're at. I covered in a previous episode on how to interpret some of the perfmon results here. Well, not really perfmon, but Task Manager rather. So yeah, memory, but the important thing I can't see is disk. Why? That'll turn my disk counters back on so I can see them here in Task Manager. Alrighty, disk C, 400 and 500 millisecond, 600 millisecond response time. Just to give you a benchmark, 600 milliseconds is approximately the speed of a floppy disk drive. That is not an exaggeration. If you take a USB drive and there we go. Now we're down to about, oh, nope. We consider anything over 25 milliseconds of latency to be critical. I'm going to go and figure out, I just put a 1 terabyte drive in this server and then replaced a SAS drive that was there. And it's taking SAS, small SAS, and replacing it with this little SATA drive may be more than what he can handle. Give me a moment. Going to pause this, fix the perf issue, and see if we can get back on board with this live migration. Actually, it might even be fun to real quick and see if we can kick the crud out of it, because since he seems to have calmed down a little bit. Yeah, that's not very pretty, but let's see what kind of response times we get if we move this thing. Just kick the crud out of it. See what kind of a load we put on and see if that really amps it up. Alright, so we're going to move the VM, again, Contoso host 1, as before, and move to single location, C:\\, oh, we actually need to use the remote file path, sorry. Well, that seems to be responding a little faster, so next. Yeah? Alright, so let's watch the response times. Okay, so it jumps up to 300. Oh, okay. Now this is interesting. So this is kind of cool, actually. This is warning me that this is something we wouldn't see in the past. And this is something that I really needed to probably have in the what's new in part anyway, so it's a good thing that this happened. What it's telling me, it's run through a check system. It's going through a set of checks and balances, and it's noticed, hey, this new VM, or this new HyperV host you're trying to send me to, this Mr. Contoso DC1, he used to be connected to something over here called contoso.com. But when I went over and tried to move it over to this other HyperV host, I noticed that there wasn't a contoso.com over there. So would you like to pick from one of the remote HyperV hosts vNetworks, VSwitches? And as you can see by dropping down, I have none. So let's go over there and create a vSwitch real quick. And so we'll go into Virtual Switch Manager. We're going to create an external network, and we're going to attach it to this little Broadcom card. We're going to call it the same contoso.com. If I name it exactly the same as the other host, and we will briefly get kicked off of this guy, but it should hopefully only be a couple of milliseconds, and he should respond back during that period of time. Yeah, so he jumped back on. Let's see if he'll dynamically retry this. Yeah, he's not going to go out and automatically retry, and we're grayed out on all of these property pages. So yeah, we're going to have to relaunch the wizard real fast. So for the 4th time, right click, we're going to move. We're going to pick move the virtual machine and Contoso host 1. And one of these days we're going to get this right? Okay, so single location, C:/ hyper-v is a remote machines location that we're going to send that to. Kick it off. It should go scan. And again, let's try peeking in on the performance on that guy. Ooh, 1400 milliseconds of latency. Yeah, that's lightning fast. 3 times, now 4 times slower than a floppy drive. Okie doke. We did not have that error pop up this time about V networks and missing problems in the configuration, because in this case we were not missing a VSwitch. So if we can get this latency under control, hopefully we'll be able to get this thing moved before it completely times out. So we're on the moving virtual machine and storage. We look over on this guy. No VMs have yet appeared over here. That won't happen. Nothing has happened yet with our DC, because the first section of this really doesn't involve the VM. It's just getting that first initial file. If you really wanted to see under the hood what was going on, we could look on, and this is the one we're moving it to. We look under that HyperV folder, you'll see this little planned virtual machines and planned snapshots. All of the pieces and parts that make up that guy are on its way over. None of his hard drives have made it yet. Contoso DC1 has started the process of moving over, but the actual DC lives on a snapshot itself. But as you can see, so far, no latency, no missed ping packets. And we'll keep an eye on that to make sure we don't lose any. So what it's going to do, as I was starting to tell you before, is after it gets the main body of that virtual machine copied over, then it begins mirroring writes, any change operation that has to happen across the 2 VMs, or the VM that's being migrated will be mirrored to both hosts, and that'll be kind of merged in, if you will. Once we have the remaining piece of that file, so first the big chunk, right, and then we have a smaller piece that's got to come over. That comes over during the mirrored read-write operations. Once that delta file makes it over to the target host, we can collapse them when we get an atomic transaction and nothing fails. Then we can proceed with deleting it off of the source host and getting rid of it. As a result, we keep this up. We also can do as many of them as we want, because it really doesn't matter how long it takes. We eventually can have an atomic transaction. Atomic meaning it either all works or it all fails. Alright, I'm looking for host number 1 down here on my taskbar. Yeah, he's still slow as a dog. We're still not losing any packets over here. Gonna feel sorry for that DC when he makes it. That is the slowest host. And let's see, oops, still hasn't shown up over here yet. I'd like to keep the latency counter on the same screen. So that is clearly going to take a little while, and I know that people would like to see the ping not drop, but let me Control-C it, and you'll see that we've had a lost is 0 right here. And so I'm going to initiate this again, and I'm going to show you that after this migration I'm going to Control-C it. That way you don't have to sit here just listening to me jibber jabber for a while, and I'll show canceled packets. In the meantime, however, before I start to go through a pause operation, I want to talk about a couple of other changes that I didn't get to in the last one of our sessions, and just in case I am still seeing this moving when I hit that, that's why I'm talking about possibly pausing it in a moment. One of the new things that has changed is the VHDX file format. So if I say new hard drive, what we're going to see here, and I'm going to keep these windows open for you, is a new format. You'll see, in addition to the old style VHD, which had a 2 terabyte limitation, the new VHDX format actually has a 64 terabyte maximum size, which is pretty astounding. We also will see a little bit of stability. There's a protection against power failures. There's a kind of like a mini journal at the head of the file that should protect from any sudden losses of power and causing an entire VHDX to become corrupt, like would happen very rarely, but still would happen on VHD files. Let's see, there's a huge improvement as far as alignment for large sector disks. Sometimes VHD files didn't have the best performance when you put them on a greater than 2 terabyte drive, because there were some alignment issues, especially if you're talking about 512E, 512E, and 4K type disks. The sector size will occasionally cause some write performance issues due to the copy on write that would have to happen to realign the sectors. So that's been fixed, and with VHDX you'll see a massive performance improvement on both of those types of drives. So the new VHDX format is pretty cool. You can convert existing disks in pretty easy way. So let's say that I, for instance, wanted to take this is Contoso DC2 or MS1. If I wanted to see, I don't want to keep you guys' percentage counter up there, but if I wanted to go into the settings for him and then go down to his drives, you'll notice that I can open, oh wait, no, I don't want to do an inspect. On that disk, I want to actually go into clicking all over the place randomly here. So edit disk. So I've got this neat edit disk wizard, and let's find the existing disk. So MS1, you'll see that I have the ability to do compact, convert, and turn it into a VHDX type of drive. This is also the same screen you would come in here if you wanted to shrink the disk, compact the disk. The compacting the disk would be if you have a dynamically expanding VHDX file, and that VHDX file suddenly got super huge because somebody copied a bunch of files on it, and those files aren't there anymore, and you now want to reclaim that space. You could recompact the disk here. The conversion utility will allow you to take VHDs and move them up to VHDX format. Just remember that VHDX format isn't compatible with your 2008 R2 servers. You won't be able to move that VM back again after having done that. So kind of keep that in mind as you're thinking about what you're going to do. So another major change is backups. So we now would consider the HyperV server to be a first-class citizen. I'll move this over a little bit so I can get myself just a teeny tiny bit more screen real estate and launch the backup utility. So I may have to pull that over just temporarily really fast. I promise we're not losing packets. So we're going to launch the Windows Server backup screen and move that back over so you can still see the packets going, and also move that out so you can see the percentage if someone's really wanted to watch that. Alright, so I specifically tried to keep you from jumping up like that. There we go. So local backup. If I want to back up 08 R2 virtual machines, it's completely possible and totally supported to use Windows Server Backup for that task. But the HyperV stuff was never what we called a first-class citizen, so it wouldn't really list it in here. So if I say backup once to kick off this wizard, and I say I want to do some custom backups, now when I go into my selection screen, you'll notice that HyperV is in fact a first-class citizen, so I could back up just this one virtual machine, and I would always grab the host component, by the way, as well, and then click next, and now I'm going to actually be able to go kick that out on a UNC path name. So the backup operations and restore operations are all inside the GUI now, so this makes it a lot easier to to back up and restore HyperV stuff. So another big change in HyperV is the HyperV client. So this is included in Windows 8, and it's a fully featured. I'm going to see if I can pop this over here real quick. This is on my local Windows 8 machine that I'm putting up in front of you. And I'm going to keep that percentage counter up there for those people who are actually watching this and actually keeping track of that. Now again, yours will probably move a lot faster than my poor little network moves, but alright, so this is Windows 8 that we're working on right at the moment. So proof of that, Windows key page down, show you, there you go. Oh yeah, I can't capture that, can I? No, I cannot. But this is in fact Windows 8, so probably the better way would be Windows key X, and then go to System, and bring this over to you where you can see it. So I am Windows 8 right here, and obviously this isn't going to run on an Atom type processor, but and it won't run on Windows RT because Windows RT is different than Windows 8. But this is a 64-bit copy of Windows 8. This is HyperV on my local machine, and opposed to what you may have heard, this is not like virtual PC, this is not like VMware Workstation, this is a true hypervisor. This turns your Windows 8 machine into a true, honest-to-goodness hypervisor with nearly all the same features. You can run just a few VMs on these compared to a full-on server. I think it's going to be more than what you would normally run into as far as a limitation. You're going to hit a wall with the total number of gigs of RAM that you have on your box much sooner. They're going to run into problems with that. And I don't even remember what the limitation is. As you can see, I have, gosh, how many do I have? Is that six VMs? Yeah, so I've got 6 VMs on this thing. Another Windows 8 box and 4 servers. I'll look up and see how many you can run. Just a sec. Well, I may have actually lied to you there. I'd assumed that there was no limit at all, and then in my last workshop there was a bunch of students telling me that they'd read somewhere that there was a limit, and they even quoted an article on TechNet, which I am not finding right now, because I'm seeing on TechNet right here an article that says Windows 8 offers no free OS instances like server does, but yeah, the only real limit is the amount of RAM, so, and disk space obviously, so I'm going to counteract until I hear otherwise. The students in my last class, I think they lied to me, which got me lying to you. So apologize for that. So there's no limit to the amount of VMs, apparently, that you can run in here. The only stuff you're going to find that is not here, when I go into the HyperV Settings and look at my machine, and its HyperV Settings, you're going to see a couple things that just aren't here that are on the server. So some of that stuff we've already looked at, and so we'll pull up the properties page here once it quits being silly and not responding. Must have too many things going on this poor guy all at once here. HyperV Settings. Why is he being that way? Come on, HyperV Settings. There we go. Gosh. Just be a little bum. Notice that you do not see any settings for live migrations, but you do see one for storage migrations. Storage migration is totally supported on Windows 8. Live migration is not. Oops, you noticed up top that we now have moved the Contoso DC. So we'll continue with the other, well, just real quick. No live storage migrations, no remote FX, HyperV Replica, which we'll be talking about in a future episode, and SRIV networking and that fake fiber channel SAN that I talked about. Those are the only things you're missing. Uh-oh, it died. File to access the disk. Yeah, so we're having some performance issues here on that remote machine. I will fix those and get back on this. Part of the problem here is definitely, yeah, we're definitely going over what that disk can handle. Alright, so knowing that things don't always work out exactly as planned, I do have a backup without having to scrap this entire video and everything we've talked about. And no, don't worry, I will come back and loop into the last couple of items on the HyperV Manager for Windows 8 in a moment, even though we've already hit almost the 30-minute mark on this video. And again, I may have to split this up, but It depends on how lazy I get. Okay, so same exact set of circumstances here, only this time I'm not dealing with a crummy little SATA 1 terabyte drive. In fact, I'm dealing with an almost underpowered drive here. So this is my little SAS. Okay, so we've got HyperV Contoso host number 10 and 11. 10 was not one I had intended really to ever use. As you can tell, it doesn't exactly have a lot of free disk space, but it should be enough to move the differencing disk for my little guy here from Contoso host 11. So here we are, we've got Contoso DC2, and we'll kind of do a similar set of stuff here. So really quickly, since you've already seen this, let's see, 3, is that his DC? I don't remember what his DC's name is, so ping contoso.com from his perspective. TOSO, he may not be joined to the domain, so DC1, see if he can at least get out there and find Contoso DC1. We're going to have some usable address, so let's find out what DC1's actually at as far as his IP address, and then we'll use that for him to ping. That way we have something. Oh, that could explain it. So let's, well, that doesn't explain the fact that I can't ping it. It just explains some of the other problems I was having before. Today is what we would call utter failure day. This is W0. You guys ever remember when Bill Gates was demoing Windows 95 and it blue screened on him right in front of about 60,000 people? That was awesome, right? Yeah, I know how he feels. I teach a lot of workshops though, so I'm kind of used to my demos having funkified behavior. So Mr. DC1, apparently Kyle has never logged on to Mr. DC1 on this machine. I know it looked like we had, but that's because it was a different set of VMs from before. So it just occurred to me that I bumped the mute button on my mic earlier. I hope I'm not sitting here talking to myself, because that would be very embarrassing. Well, so we've got a lightning fast virtual machine here. It's moving about as fast as our last one. So that would be why. Can't find the guy if he's not attached to a network. Yeah, how about we connect him to something usable? That would sound like a good idea to me anyway. How about now? Yeah, 10.103. The good news is I'm finding all the broken things that are wrong. .3. Yep, he still can't see it. 10.103 settings. His is also on contoso.com. Does he have an IP address? A PIPA. If you'll remember from one of the first little labs here, our local server config in our server manager, and how easy it is to set these guys up using those quick shortcuts. If I use the one that I assume he is, I guarantee it'll have an IP conflict. So 3. Oh, I haven't installed RAS on that guy, so there's no gateway in this network. All so that I can get an ICMP packet from one point to another. Everybody watching this is like, I didn't really start watching this video to watch Troubleshooting 101. Okay. So, we are looking at Contoso DC2, who is running on Mr. Contoso host 11. We're going to go and configure Contoso host 10 to be able to accept it, just like before. We go to HyperV Settings on him, go to storage, live migrations, turn it on, using curb, any available network, kablang, we're done. We should now be able to move the virtual machine. Okay, we're going to have to enable it on this box as well. So I didn't realize that wasn't done yet, so really quickly. On 11, live migrations, both the source and destination machine need to be turned on for this. So we move. Next, move the virtual machine to Contoso host 10. Move it all to one place. And later I'll explain why this VM is so small. Stick it in HyperV. Okay. Processor specific issues. And this is something that we can't turn live, but the processor compatibility checkbox needs to be on. So of course we have to accidentally trip over the power cord. Oh, whoops. Poor power cord. The cool thing about this video is going to be that it covers a whole host of things that you might run into trying to enable this, rather than reading it in a book where it sounds like it all works great, or in one of my classes where I've done the lab so many times, though I've worked out all of the silly bugs. Alright, so pause it while he boots up. Right on, okay, so Contoso DC2 has booted back up, got him logged in, he's pinging the other DC. We're going to go ahead and try one more time, and then it'll be utter failure, but at least everybody got to see the new interfaces. I'm going to scroll that over so we can see this. Click, move, start the wizard, move the VM to Contoso DC10, or host 10, move it all to a single location, so you call in /HyperV, and we'll kick that off. And didn't find the Contoso.com. He has one called Broadcom blah 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 blah, which is fairly useless, which is also an indication that I forgot to set up a Contoso VSwitch, but who cares? It's letting me correct the problem on the fly is the point, and that's one of the awesome prerequisite wizards that we get when we run through this. So see if I can get this where I can hit the finish and still see the status window. Moving the virtual machine in the storage, we don't get the processor error this time. We're going to see this guy pinging and pinging. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and Control-C and restart the ping, just so that we get a how many blips did we get. We didn't lose any because we really didn't do anything on the last round. We will lose at some point this guy's window, because instead of using RDP, remote desktop connection, we're using the virtual machine connection. So when this thing doesn't exist on this HyperV host anymore and moves over to the other HyperV host, we'll have to go chase it down over there, really quickly open its property. And when we go look at the ping window, we should, theoretically anyway, not actually miss any pings. So let's move this over just so I can see the happy little percentage. He's already at 29%. This is in fact running a differencing disk across the wire here, so that's going to take a couple of minutes, and I've tortured you guys with enough of waiting around for things not to work. So I'm going to pause the video and we'll pick that up as soon as it gets to 100%. Promise not to cheat. Although, actually, I did remember there was one other thing I was going to talk to you guys about. It'll be like the longest video I've ever done. We were talking about Mr. HyperV and Windows 8, right? So one thing we didn't talk about is removing features of HyperV. I'll show you this little, if I could spell, turning Windows features on and off. In Windows 8, to turn on Hyper-V just requires you to check this box right here, the Hyper-V platform. You don't have to download anything, you don't have to install anything. As a matter of fact, one of the common confusion points people are having right now is they go download RSAT, they install the full RSAT pack of tools, and lo and behold, they can't find the Hyper-V management tools. Well, they're not part of RSAT. As a matter of fact, this box doesn't even have the remote server administration tools on it, as you can see, but I can still manage Hyper-V. Why? Because, well, hey, it's built into Windows. So as you can see right here, I've got both the GUI management tools, got the Hyper-V tools, and alright, so we've lost the connection here, and that's what we expected. Eventually it will pick it up again, but I don't want to actually... Oh, there it goes. Oh, that's really funny. We actually didn't lose the ability to ping until the exact moment that we moved over to that public network. The reason that it's saying destination host and regions was not on the same network as the DC anymore, but we never actually blipped during the migration. The reason that it's no longer seeing the DC is because it's on a different subnet. I didn't take that into account, but that's also easy to fix. So we come over here, Contoso DC2 would be helpful if we had a Contoso-based type of a network, but you guys get the picture here. He's not going to be able to see DC1 because it's not on the same Hyper-V box, and Contoso DC1 doesn't even exist in the same network. One very interesting way we could fix this problem is take DC1 and actually move it to the same network as that other guy, just for fun and grins and giggles. There is a network I have here called external, just to prove that I didn't pull a fast one on you guys. Notice that he's now seeing reply from. It was the DC. So anyway, no blip. He completely didn't hiccup at all. It was his owner that caused him to do something stupid and fall off the existing production network because the DC wasn't on the same one. Still, there you go. That's live migration. You will be able to do this to your production boxes without failover clusters, and they'll be able to move through. The coolest thing was you saw about 15 different problems. This came as a result of me running through a demo without actually running through it first. I just kind of picked up the mic today and decided to go through and say, hey, let's build a quick little video on, well, quick, it's 42 minutes for long right now, but quick little video on what's changed in Hyper-V and what's going on with the whole live migration thing. I never caused any downtime on that DC or the other DC we were trying to migrate, because at no point in time did we ever get it to actually do anything interesting, right up until the last minute when I was warned by Hyper-V, hey, you're moving this to a network that doesn't seem to exist on the other guy. I told it, hey, you just throw it on any network you got. Apart from that, we would never have seen any downtime on this. So you could actually move machines around without a failover cluster, totally live, totally built into Hyper-V without installing any additional roles or role features or supporting pieces or downloads out of bound. It's just in there. So the one thing that I did not talk about, and I'm not going to go into detail about, that is a really cool new feature about Hyper-V that I'm not going to cover simply because you guys are probably tortured enough with this 45-minute video on the back of a 30-minute video on what's new in Hyper-V. And that's going to be the fact that importing and exporting has changed. It used to be required to export a VM before you could import the VM, and now it's not. If you just want to go and shut a VM off and then copy its stuff over to another host and then import it, it actually will work. So that is going to save a ton of time. You don't have to do a full export. So anyway, yeah, guys, sorry for the long video here. I'm not sure if I'll split this one up into multiple parts or not. I'll decide that at another time. But in any case, we're currently at about an hour and 15 minutes total on this video. So anyway, guys, this has been Chris with Microsoft, and as always, thanks a bunch for watching. If you did find anything about this useful or interesting, please give it a quick like. Feel free to subscribe to my channel as well in the link below, and my blog also, if you would like to go peruse that, is at 9z.com. It's real easy to remember. Just remember the last number and the last letter .com. That's got links to my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my Twitter. So again, thanks a ton for listening, and I will see you guys in the next episode.